Hi, I'm Ariel. You're watching She Wants the Diction, and today I'm here to talk to you guys about Xenogenesis by Octavia Butler. This is a sci-fi series that has been compiled into one book. Now, it can be called either Xenogenesis or Lilith's Brood, but technically it is a series of 3 books, a trilogy if you will. It is a collection that I first heard about on the channels of Onyx Pages, and I also heard about it from Bookie Charm, so I will be linking both of those ladies down below. Now, what first drew me to this book was the summary of it, and it was described as a black woman is taken captive by an alien race, and this alien race wants to basically genetically combine with the human race to create a new race. So that premise alone had me so intrigued. So my copy of Xenogenesis I actually bought off of a website called Thrift Books. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard of them. I've only ordered from them twice, but I didn't really have a good experience this time around. I ordered the hardback, and I don't even really like hardback, but the only other option was mass market paperback, and I hate those even more. I got the hardback, and I will insert a picture of what the cover is. Now, it's an illustrated picture that actually shows like what looks like a really young black girl and then an alien sort of like clutching her neck. And it said it was in good condition. I don't know if that means it was supposed to have the cover or not, but I was really disappointed when I got it and it did not have the cover that I wanted. However, as I actually read the first book, which is called Dawn, I realized how inaccurate the cover illustration was, and then I was kind of like over it. I didn't really want the illustration anymore because the artist didn't accurately interpret the way that the alien species was described in here. It's described as having many tentacles and no eyes and you know, no ears. And the first one of these creatures like has the tentacles all over its head. The first one of these creatures that Lilith encounters, it is more familiar looking to her because although it has the tentacles, it has darker tentacles like where there would normally be eyes and ears and stuff. So it vaguely looks more familiar to her. That's why it's the first alien that makes contact with her or whatever, so she won't freak out as much. The alien didn't just have black eyes, and its arm is more like a claw. It looks like a claw on the cover rather than the kind of elephant trunk type descriptions that are given to it in the book. And also Lilith has like some sexual experiences in here, and I'm not entirely comfortable with her looking as young as she does on the cover. I feel like she would need to be older for the book. Not that, you know, preteens can't have sex, but for my purposes, I picture her as, you know, a fully grown woman. That rant said, this was about $10. So that was another reason I was disappointed. And the reason it is so much is because I believe this volume of all 3 books collected into one is out of print now. So that's one reason that it's apparently like difficult to find, and the library didn't have it, and so I was like, I got my taxes back, I'm gonna treat myself and get this book that I am really wanting to read. And it's rare that I hear a short sentence summary and I'm just like, I have to read that. As I said, the main character in this is a black woman named Lilith. Now, going into the book, we don't really find this out. There are some very subtly done descriptions of her skin color, only really 2 or 3 sprinkled throughout. There's a mention of like a man that had dark skin like her own. It'll be subtle stuff like that. It's not, this is a black woman. This is a black woman. Remember, this is a black woman. Like, you're not getting bashed over the head with the fact that this is a black woman. It simply is. It's a sci-fi story where the main character and the leader is a person of color, and it's awesome to see that not overdone. And I think that it wasn't overdone precisely because it was written by another black woman. And I think that's what people misunderstand a lot about like diversity in general is we're not trying to make the story all about us being black and all about this. We just want characters that they simply are. It's just so significant. Like, I'm used to reading stories where it's not even, you just assume it's white. You just assume. And it is so nice to see myself reflected in these stories, like just an ordinary, like it's normal, like it's normalized. And that is so just affirming, and I can't even tell you how amazing it is as a fan of sci-fi and like never really seeing myself in a fully fleshed out character. I can't tell you like how affirming that is. I really relate to Lilith. Essentially, she's chosen by these alien people. The alien people call themselves the Oankali, and they kind of function in a different dynamic. Now, I'm not going to explain everything about the dynamics, but the conflict of the book is that Lilith was chosen because she's adaptable. She can more readily understand the situation, and she wants to survive. Now, in order to do that, she has to merge her genetic material with these aliens, and they're not exactly the best at asking for consent. They saw that humanity was about to be wiped out and completely destroyed, and decided to save some of them, what they could, and then they merged with them. So they did things like cure Lilith's cancer that she probably would have died from eventually. Now, the thing is, they don't ask for consent, like they just did it and then explained it to her later. So there's kind of a dilemma there. Like, yes, they did a good thing, but like they didn't ask. There's the feeling of them trying to control humanity and not just letting it develop on its own, but also that's their culture, is to trade. Like they trade their DNA with organisms. Like, for example, their transports, they don't invent things. They have creatures that they exchange with, a mutually beneficial exchange, so that life form is working to provide them a service, and they're also, doing things for them. So it's a natural part of their culture. Like that's the way that they are. So there's an issue of, where do you draw the line? Like your own independence, and then like this alien culture, like how much should you let it encroach on your own culture? Like, is it wrong? Or is it simply a different way of doing things? And I think there is a very clear conflict there. And Lilith she's not conflicted. She wants to survive. But that is Lilith's conundrum. Like, by cooperating with them, is she actually destroying the human race? Or is she letting it survive in the only way that it can now? Is she betraying the human race, or is she saving it? I just think that's an awesome conflict, and it's so complex, the many elements. I loved learning about the Oankali culture and the way that they do things, and the dilemmas that Lilith was facing. Their relationships and families are kind of set up in a different way. They mate in sort of groups of 3. So there will be a male Oankali, a female Oankali, and then what is called an Ooloi. An Ooloi is a genderless, it's not male or female being. And then through them, the male and female will come together. The Ooloi kind of mentally joins them, so they are directly in contact. Like, they have sex, but it's through a direct stimulation, and it's only possible through the intermediary that is the Ooloi. And it's depicted that a lot of humans have problems accepting how the Oankali work and how the Oankali sexual relationships happen. Like, they feel like there's another person in the room with them that's unwanted. So they struggle with not feeling like this is a normal human coupling. Like, they struggle with them being present during the sex and needing them to facilitate the sex, and it not being a physical sex experience. And they also struggle with the look of these strange people. Like, they're very uncomfortable with the tentacles, and it takes getting used to, and they're extremely ugly and revolted by it. And I just think that is so realistic, how even Lilith, who is one of the stronger ones, really had to force herself to get used to the look of this alien people. And it's just step by step. It's also depicted that the men have a lot of problems with the Oankali way of doing relationships and sex. Like, they feel unmanned by it. So there's a lot of issues with that. And Lilith is basically designated the unofficial leader. And when the Oankali trade with her, they also give her these powers of, memory to be able to defend herself, so she's stronger and a little bit bigger than, the fellow humans. She has to lead this group, and they do give her the power to defend herself, but she doesn't want to be leading the group. And she has to awaken all these humans and teach them everything they're going to need to survive on the new Earth, and essentially be the progenitors of a new race on Earth. But first, they have to pass the tests. Like, they have to learn how to survive. They have to learn to get along. Like, the Oankali are studying them. They have to learn to get used to the Oankali. And it's Lilith's task to, help that along. And she struggles with being a leader. She doesn't want to be a leader, and that's precisely why the Oankali make her the leader, and she's targeted, and she has to wrestle with these moral dilemmas. And it's just, I absolutely loved it. Octavia Butler's writing is absolutely engaging. I am dying to know what happens next. I would often read whole sections and not even notice, that I've been reading for so long. And after you've read a sequence of books that weren't that great, to find one that makes you excited about reading again is just the best feeling. To see a Black woman writing sci-fi, I never knew what that could look like. And it's so good. honestly, if you have any interest in like anything I mentioned, like please check this book out. I mean, it would even be worth purchasing. Now, I've just started the second book, so I can't speak to that one. But so far from what I've read, I'm loving it. One of the things that did bother me is that once all the humans start being awakened, it's hard to keep the characterization straight simply because there are so many humans. And the only thing that really struck me, as old as this book is, as outdated, was maybe the USA and USSR. There were a few things interjected about that. So I'm assuming maybe Earth was destroyed by a nuclear conflict between the US and Russia, or something like that. But I'm not entirely sure what we're supposed to take from that. It's a post-apocalyptic setting. The old Earth is no more. They got to get used to these new foods, this new way of life, this alien race that is essentially in control of them. I personally love all that nerdy shit. I'm all over it. It's done in a great way. Those are my thoughts on Xenogenesis. If you have read it, let me know what you think. If you haven't, let me know if this convinced you to pick it up. Hopefully it did. Thanks, as always, for watching. Bye, guys.